one more now. We'll do James here in the back right, and then we'll invite Merton and Mark Harlan out.
George, just to follow on what you just said, I think a response ago, because it caught a lot of people's attention very quickly. You just said you're not announcing a deal today on purpose because you want the attention to be on football.
Yep.
To be clear, that would imply that the deal is done and codified and just you're waiting until after today. To be clear, that would imply that the deal is done and codified and just you're waiting until after today.
I think you're reading too much into that. I think you're reading too much into that. I think you're reading too much into that.
Going down. That's all, folks.
Hello and welcome to the Big 12 Mafia Show. I'm your host, Nathan Bomber Brown. I've got with me today, who's going to turn into being one of my every once in a while partners, Greg Flugar. Hey, Greg, how we doing?
Good, doing real good.
It was an interesting day. It'll be fun to review everything. Enjoyed your show this morning, by the way.
Thanks.
That was really good getting that going.
Yeah.
We've also got a couple of co-hosts with us, Moen Vision and Immaculate. They're common partners on my show and contributors, and I really appreciate them being here. So there's a lot to cover today, and I don't necessarily want to just sit here and do a long spiel at the beginning, but I did want to really quick recognize as many of these people that are in here today early. And I think that's really important, and you guys are what we're about. So let me just call a few of these people out. Cougar Tail was first in. Kyle Visser was second. George Kliavkov's burner phone. It's good to know he's here. Conundrum's in the house. We have Nathan Nett and Conundrum and BR, who's one of our subscribers. And oh my gosh, let's just get through these. Earl Carr is another subscriber. Any others? Laura Weiss. Nice to see you, Laura. And we'll grab one more. K-Do, thanks for being here. We really appreciate everybody joining us today. We know Pac-12 Media Days was a big deal. It's a Friday, so this is supposed to be really laid back, and we hope you enjoy the time. All right, Greg, I'm going to give you 90 seconds. Give me a summary of how you think today went for the Pac-12.
It did not go well. Even John Wilner's own words, he said that this was going to be a psychological, I'm paraphrasing, a psychological component to how well George Kliavkov does in the stage in front of the mic. And he was doing okay, and then he screwed up big time. The messaging, his answer to the question, a couple different questions. One, the San Diego State question, but the big one when he said we did not announce a Pac-12 media deal on purpose,
right?
Because we wanted to have the focus to be on football. And then he was that follow-up question we just saw on your opening of your show. He said to the reporter, "You're reading too much into that. You're reading too much into my answer."
Right.
My own words. I think that overtook everything that he said previously. And I think it was a bad bad day for George Kliakoff once again. And I can see why they don't have him out talking to the reporters, because with those performances, that's only going to hurt the Pac-12. There is some possible good nugget of, can I get into that right now?
Please, yeah.
Just possible good nugget of information for the Pac-12 in the potential for them to reach a media deal that could get all 10 Pac-12 presidents to sign on the dotted line and to sign the grant of rights. 247 is reporting tonight, this evening, Brandon Marcello, that one of the media partners, potential media partners that have come back into the fold to discuss a possible deal with the Pac-12 is Fox Sports. 247 Sports is reporting that. It's a potential. They're back in, they're talking. It doesn't mean, but just that, if that is true, just that potential is good news. I think, we had to discuss it here. The people I talk to are scrambling to see if they get that same information, because Fox has been out, ESPN has been out. They've been very cold on the Pac-12. So if that's true, that is some, you can see why, there's some optimism. And after Immaculate and Mullen talk, and we have discussed some other things, I think we also need to talk about the Ross Dellinger article that just dropped from Yahoo Sports with Rick George, the Colorado athletic director, beeline out of there, trying to get to his airplane, doesn't want to talk to anybody. We'll get to that we'll get to that in a moment.
I was just going to give everybody what the title of that article is, because we will talk about it. It's on Yahoo Sports, and it's while Colorado flirts with exit, Pac-12 commish continues urging patience on TV deal. And then the meat of the article's down here, and we'll get back to that. All right, Immaculate and Moen, what do you guys think? I know especially Immaculate was paying attention very much at the beginning, and we talked a little bit after that show this morning. And I'd like both Moen and Immaculate's opinions. Immaculate, you can go first.
Well, I thought originally it was going very well, not in terms of scoring a big win, but just in doing what he needed to do and control the narrative, keep it going forward. And then media just decided to go where they wanted to go, which is kind of what we thought was going to happen. And it just turned into a mess for him. And at the very end, he really fumbled that bad. And I know that they said that this is going to be the last question, and people may remember that, they may not remember that. But the way it's going to appear and people are going to perceive it is that after that question, they shut it down. Right. And they went to having a 3-person panel up there, and all the tougher questions got funneled over to the other guys, who included the Utah AD. Right. So I thought, and even his answer was extremely covering his butt. So right. I think that it went pretty badly for them. That being said, I think it still stands to say that if he pulls this off in the end, I'm going to stand up and give him a standing ovation, because I don't see where he's pulling this out. If Fox is coming back, that's cool, but that would tell me they're coming back with a bit of a hardball. And they originally offered a number that the PAC didn't like, and the PAC's now in this problem, and they just had this really bad media day. So Fox, if they're coming back, they're probably coming in with a low ball. Just my thoughts on that. Agreed. Hey, Greg, you want to send me that link, by the way? Send that to me in a DM, and I'll bring up that article, the 247 article.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. All right, Moen, you've been patient. Tell us what you were thinking about give us an entire day summary.
The signature of mediocrity is chronic inconsistency. Right. And George Kliakoff has been chronically inconsistent in his messaging. The Pac-12 presidents and ADs have all been chronically inconsistent in their messaging. This would not be such a big deal had we not heard for the last 9 months that this deal was right around the corner. Right. And I agree with Immaculate. He was doing very well to start off, but he just towards the end he just crashed and burned. And if he gets this deal, he can find some deal, scrap, get these guys to stick together. Great, but he is clearly being outclassed by every other A5 commissioner, and that includes Tony Petiti, who's only had one press conference.
Yeah,
the man's had one press conference, and he's outclassing George Kliavkoff at this point. I think after this deal is done, they may want to look at finding a new commissioner for the PAC.
So the one takeaway I have from the whole thing is that the messaging they wanted to put out was, let's just focus on football. Let's not worry about the media deal. But the control of the narrative to the point where they shut down the question and answer session literally in a second because they got a follow-up question. I just, that part I don't understand. If they weren't there to answer tough questions, then that means they're not for real. And at the end of the day, whether this Fox thing comes in or not, if Fox comes in at $9 million and then they can get another 10 or 19 from somebody else and they somehow get to 28, that still doesn't show that the organization of the Pac-12 is being run right. My question is more about administration, not about money or even exposure at this point. Is, can the Pac-12 put something together that they can, it's respectable? I mean, they just had the Stanford guy kicked to the curb because he was doing stuff on research. You have Kurt Schultz at Washington State, who ran his corporate or his university into the ground with money. What part of the Pac-12 running well as an apparatus says that these guys should stay together? And this is for any of you. I mean, that's just really the outstanding question.
History and tradition are the only things
right
that really keep the
and
core of it together.
Yeah, history. They're like-minded institutions. They want to stick together, large research universities, and that's always been the case. It just so happens that there's more to the story, though, especially in this change in landscape of college football and college sports. It's going to change more. So the old rules of certain schools sticking together to play an athletic conference may not be as solid as it's going to be 10 years from now, and it definitely isn't as solid as it is right now. These schools want to stay together, but can they stay together? Well, I say that, and Monavision always corrects me. Obviously, Oregon and Washington have swung for the fences for the Big Ten. They're going to keep swinging. Obviously, California, Stanford, California, the Richard Lee, part of the California Board of Regents, said that they try to pressure the Big Ten into getting to Stanford, California, Oregon, Washington during the UCLA meetings at the California Board of Regents. Having said that, though, none of those Pac-12 schools really truly during this process have wanted to join the Big 12. That's not a shot against the Big 12. It's just the reality. But again, there's a whole other story. There's a whole other parts of the story that some people don't want to, the networks, they're not keen on having a one region conference in the Pacific Coast. The Southeast is doing just fine. The SEC is incredible. But for the networks, the eyeballs are not there. For the advertisers, Pac-12 country doesn't watch Pac-12 content the way the rest of the country does, and the rest of the country doesn't watch Pac-12 content. So that's the problem. That's the story. It isn't about, it is about schools wanting to stay together, but there's also this other component, and you have a very aggressive Big 12 commissioner who has a vision. He wants this conference to go national, and there is some schools that are interested, mainly Colorado, and that's the story.
So let's talk about Colorado. By the way, let me do a really quick rundown. If you're new to the show, please subscribe. I'm sure you're here because you watched Greg's show, and we've been pumping this up for a week. So I appreciate all the new people that are watching the show today. I hope you get something from this conversation, and you'll become a returning viewer. If you want your chat to be recognized, We already have almost 200 people in the chat room. If it's going to be impossible for me to keep up with those unless it's a super chat, or if you're a subscriber, those always get precedence. And then lastly, again, I want to recognize Patrick Boren is the one who created that video. I started at the beginning. I'm going to finish the show with that so everybody can see what he does. He puts out some great videos, and I really want to recognize him. All right, let's bring in this article. Let's talk about this right now. So this article, and Greg, did you want to do a summary, or do you want me to run down it?
Well, go ahead. I mean, well, you got it right there. I've got a flight to catch. George Bellum, Rick George, the athletic director of Colorado. I'll just read it here.
Yeah, go ahead. You bet.
A little bit of it. Colorado athletic director Rick George swiftly left the main stage at the Pac-12 football media day on Friday, only to be met by a handful of reporters. For months, Colorado's future as a member of the Pac-12 has been in doubt. We've been talking about this for months that peek around the corner. DiStefano, the chancellor of Colorado, have left open the possibility that the school could pursue other suitors. The reporters were interested in learning more. I've got a flight to catch. George bellowed. He got out of there as fast as he could. Fleet-footed and faster than he looks, George pivoted, turning the corner, disappearing down a dark hallway, eventually exiting this glamorous monstrosity. Resorts World Las Vegas. Go down more in the article here. Yeah.
So to start at and yet for a second consecutive year.
Yeah. Okay, go down. For many of us, the only real known truth about the Pac-12 media negotiations is nothing. Speculation has run rampant, but the talks have been cloaked in secrecy. Kliavkoff has been tight with the details, even his own constituents. Some take that as an ominous sign. Others say it's quite normal. It's not quite normal. This stuff gets leaked like crazy. If you got positive stuff to say, it gets leaked because you want to create that momentum, that inertia. On Thursday, the Pac-12 presidents and administrators met for what turned out to be another limited update on the progress of negotiations. We said that last night on our Twitter account. It was a very loose. Once again, there wasn't much there. Multiple sources confirmed to Yahoo Sports a disappointment considering the Colorado's chancellor's public comments earlier this year. DiStefano told the Denver Post that figures for a potential TV contract were expected to be shared Thursday. That was never the case. This is the Big 12 Mafia money shot of this article. That was never the case, according to those within the league. So, immaculate. Monovision, come on. We have cloak and dagger. The cloak, the dagger. Did DiStefano use the dagger right now? I mean, he said something. He said he expected clarity. He expected some final numbers for the Thursday presentation. That was yesterday, a day before the Pac-12 media day today. And according to sources, multiple sources to Ross Dellinger, and you guys know how fantastic Ross Dellinger is, that was never the case. We have a cloak and dagger going on right here.
Yeah.
And that article was released 30 minutes before Big 12 Matthews show came on. And baby, there's a lot there. Go ahead.
Okay. I want to say two things. First of all, you can come to read to my kids to go to bed anytime. Yeah, that's a sultry voice you got there, Greg.
No, it's a horrible voice, actually. Go ahead.
No, the only thing that stands out to me, and then I'll turn it over to our esteemed panelists here. I have been saying on Twitter all week that what has seemed to me this PR campaign all week long to prove to the world that the media deal is coming, even though we might not see it, but there's something there, right? And nothing. And it seemed to me like all it was just hot air. And they've been exploiting journalists all over to get all kinds of leaks out that mean nothing. And I would feel bad if I was a journalist for Forbes magazine. I'm not throwing Jim under the bus. I'm talking Forbes magazine, and they said, okay, here, I'm going to give you a tip, and this tip is a media deal's coming. Just wait, it's going to be here. And then, of course, it doesn't, because they don't have one. And I just don't know why people will continue to listen to this. And honestly, this is the last thing I'll say. I honestly think at this point, they're not going to say anything before the beginning of the year, of the football season. I think they're going to drag this into the year of football, and they want to do that because everybody will be paying attention to wins and losses. They won't be talking about the media deal. That's just right now. That's how I think it's going to work. It's going to be sometime in September or October. Okay, guys, and I'll give you time.
Okay, well, I would go back to what Greg said. It's very interesting about Colorado. You have a Board of Regents meeting posted. Then suddenly it's unposted. Then suddenly we have an article. And then suddenly we have DeStefano saying that he was led to believe there would be figures and there weren't. Right. Then you have Rick George bolting for a jet. It's pretty obvious that Colorado wants answers. And the PAC and George Kliavkoff are clearly not giving it to him. So I'd be interested to see if Colorado does not repost that Board of Regents meeting following Thursday's basically non-meeting, no actual solid figure, and today's faux pas on the stage by George Kliavkoff.
You're talking about the July 25th meeting that was there and then disappeared?
Yes, it was there. It disappeared. Right. Then we got the article from DeStefano, and then, it does seem to me that Colorado's trying to Colorado is doing everything to say, make me stay. And the PAC just can't get it right. Can't get it right. So
they're setting the table.
All right, Immaculate, what do you think?
Well, I remember when DeStefano's statement got kind of brought out, and we all didn't really think of it as that big of a deal. It's kind of like, oh, all right, cool. We get to see whatever this is leading up to it. It's turned out to be a lot more. Especially considering he was the guy, if I remember right, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, that he never really seemed all that hyped on Big 12. The chancellor, he said a few things, and it all seemed very much, we want to be in the PAC. I never really saw him say anything that really could go either way.
That didn't come from him. You're right.
Right. And so for him to basically call him out and saying we need to see something, and then for this to happen, and then for the AD to just up and leave, who thinks that he was flying commercial on the way out?
I know, right? Exactly.
I mean,
it's ludicrous.
This thing was scheduled down to a T, and I watched and I kept it on, and it kept to the schedule, so it wasn't like it was running late.
Right.
So for him to run out of there, like, I got to catch a plane, that guy did not want to talk to the media because he saw what they did to GK, and he didn't want anything coming out that's going to get twisted in all which way, because everyone is looking at Colorado right now.
What's ironic?
Yeah, everybody's on the hunt. Everybody's on the Colorado hunt. All the reporters, they're all on it. They know that all these so-called stories are not lies about Colorado. They met May 7th in Chicago. The meeting was an hour and a half long with the Big 12. There was a meeting preceding that a couple months before that. In the first meeting between Colorado and the Big 12, there were representatives of some media companies in that first meeting. The second meeting in Chicago, there wasn't representatives of the media companies. There's a lot there. There's a lot of detail there. I can't go on any more than that. But this has been going on for quite a while. And now, does it mean that Colorado is going to say we're gone, we're out of here? No. But all of this is real. And the reporters know it, because the fat guy from Minnesota is definitely not the only guy who knows this, right?
Right.
I mean, my goodness. So so those in the chat are out there. You can disagree with the potential result of all this. We can all disagree. College football is all about disagreement, right? If we can't have disagreement in college football, what are we doing? However, this is real. This is real cloak and dagger stuff behind the scenes. DeStefano just did something cloak and dagger. You just gotta realize this as we go on with this story. Sorry, Immaculate.
No, you're good. I was just going to add on, if I had to guess as to what was going on with the AD, he was probably getting a lot of phone calls from power people all day long, wanting to know what the hell is going on, tweets. He probably had a lot to go deal with, because I think they've all been waiting for this to either show that, hey, we've got something to stay with the pack,
Right.
or to show this is why we need to get out of the pack. And because they weren't given that for this at all, I think they're going to have a lot of people who are now demanding, like, hey, we need to figure something out. And some money people who may have initially been like, we need to stay with the pack if at all possible. I think once they saw this in the morning and reports of it going on through the day, which nothing talks about the football. Like, no one is talking about it. And honestly,
no, it was a
pack
waste
football
of
looks
time.
great this year. And if
Yeah.
that was his goal, was to have everyone talk about football, he gets an F. If you're grading him as a president or anyone who's deciding whether he keeps his job, he gets an F. Only reason why he might keep the job is because there's going to be no replacement. No one's going to want that job.
Let's cover this quote. Daniel Gygax with the super chat. Daniel, thank you very much. You're a loyal visitor, and I really appreciate that. He says the quote from Brock Heward early in the week basically said that Fox wasn't in. Also, with NASCAR trucks and Major League Baseball playoffs taking broadcast spots, the only option would be that after dark time. Everybody needs to remember, though, that Fox owns the Mountain West Conference, and they're in the same window of time. The Mountain West plays in that late window as well. So it's not like they're starved for content. Plus BYU is all there for the Big 12. So it's not like there's a dearth of content. But it has to be at a screaming deal. Like Greg said at the very beginning, unless it's some screaming deal, like it's $5 million, a total of, what is that, $60 million or something for one game. I just, why would you stick around just to be able to keep that Pac-12 shield on your chest? The only other thing that we could point to is that research money and the lever that Stanford is using to keep everybody together, which is, you leave us, we're going to cut you off. All right, Greg, you were going to say something.
No.
Okay.
No,
all right, then let's move to the next thing. Go ahead.
Well, I want to answer that real quick.
Yeah, please, Mo, go ahead.
If Fox is back at the table, there is a guaranteed number of Oregon-Washington games in that contract that they would be signing.
Right.
Those are the only two properties that I think Fox would have any interest in. No offense to the rest of the Pac-12. Fox has wanted Oregon and Washington into the Big Ten. If they're back at the table because they couldn't get Oregon and Washington into the Big Ten, they're trying to get a piece of it for Fox.
Right.
And they do have some space available in that late afternoon game when they don't have a Big 12 game on. So
let's really quick. Oh, go ahead, Greg.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I do remember something. Lewis, a great caller on our show at Peek Around the Corner, he made a very good point. He DM'd me a very good point, and he's allowed me to share this. In that statement at the start of the Pac-12 Media Day by George Kliakoff, he mentions, or in a Q&A, he mentions something to the effect of, once we get this media deal signed, whatever, this realignment cycle will be over. Remember he said that?
Right.
Well, I mean, okay, so is that more indication that you kind of know you have no chance to, expand with SMU and San Diego State? There's also this other element of San Diego State and SMU. I think the chances of them climbing over the wall to get to a Power 5 conference, unfortunately, is dwindling.
Right.
Even with with his statements today, it's because, realignment isn't over. If you expand with San Diego State and SMU, you got, the AAC now has to make a decision. The Mountain West has to make a decision. Realignment keeps percolating in this wave. But Kliakoff, he said, once we get this deal signed, grant rights, realignment when this cycle is over. He didn't really, he didn't say Power 5 realignment is over. So San Diego State having to fork over $34 million, to play for the 2024 season probably isn't going to happen if they do get an invite. And then, so there's 10 Pac-12s. So let's say Pac-12 gets a media deal. They all can sign. They all can sign a grant of rights. That's not a whole lot of inventory for you to offer your media partners. I don't know. It's just interesting that maybe, and unfortunately for San Diego State and SMU, I think their chances have gone down quite a bit here in the last week or so.
So after Colorado canceled their, what was it, June 6th or June 7th meeting, the next day there was a potential that they could be making some sort of a vote to leaving the Pac-12. That was never reported, but there were rumors that was why that meeting was canceled, as they were presented with something. Now you jump ahead in time, and I don't think any of the data has changed that they have in front of them, but I think Colorado now might be looking at it through a different prism.
Yeah.
I know you don't want to say a lot of stuff, Greg. I know what you're
there's things that we can't say because
right. I know
we're tied up with some stuff. But
right.
The June 6th meeting, Colorado Board of Regents meeting, there was discussion of conference affiliation.
Right.
We have that confirmed 3 different ways to Sunday. And there was another meeting that there was confirmation. We've got confirmed that there was discussion of conference affiliation, which we can't say the date. We probably will say the date sometime next week.
Yeah.
So there's been 2 confirmed. They're talking about conference affiliation within the Board of Regents. We know that there's been 2 meetings with the donors of University of Colorado. At the time, I couldn't talk about the details, but it's been reported a week before it happened, about May 17th. We talked about it at Peek Around the Corner on May 24th. There were minnows. We call them minnows. They went to Boulder, Colorado, had some discussions with leadership. I'll just say that at the University of Colorado. And May 31st, the big donor whales, a few of them met in Newport, California, May 31st. So at least 2 donor meetings, at least 2 conference affiliation being discussed at 2 Board of Regents meetings, and at least 2 in-person meetings between Colorado and the Big 12. All of that is known throughout it's known throughout all these college football reporters, everything. Now it's way out there.
Right.
So that's where we're at. And the only thing else I can say is, for those who don't know our show, we do we have Holy Smokes Theater talking about the drama of college football, and we're on Act 12. We've been on Act 12 since June 1st. The last day is July 24th of Act 12. The first day of Act 13th is July 25th, and we'll see what happens.
So let's get to this comment from Kadu, who's been a loyal viewer for a while. He says the PAC had an opportunity to flip the script and narrative. That he's talking about Media Day today. GK fell flat on his face. You cannot get sponsorships, corporate partners, unless you can show them that your conference is viable, and that did not happen. Does anybody, and if I'm watching your comments right now live, does anybody watching or does anybody on the panel think that Pac-12 Media Day, which is a joke, today was successful? Yeah, I didn't think so. Go ahead.
I would actually say you'd have to go later into the show, into some of the individual team talks to find some success. Would I say the beginning of it when conference leadership was on? No, that was an absolute failure. I did keep it on just to see some things coming up, and I thought that there were some very good points later on, but no, overall it was pretty bad. That was quite a mess.
This is an interesting comment from Thomas Sweeney, who might be new to the show. Thomas, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. And make sure you subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and leave us a comment. I read all those. He says, I believe for a few months, 1 leads to 4, if not 6. So the Mountain West is going to become Hoover and clean up the mess. So let me say mine, and then you guys can break down yours. I think if Colorado leaves, it still can keep the Pac-12 together because of Utah. Utah doesn't want to go anywhere. And you saw today, Mark Harlan, he is dedicated to keeping Utah in the Pac-12. So I think the Pac-12's there. The only question is when that CU breaks the bubble, does that mean Washington and Oregon get that invite that they've been pining for? Nobody can say that they will, but that's the outstanding question. So I'm going to follow that up and saying if Colorado leaves, there is a potential that Big 12 picks up UConn. I think that number is going way down. I used to think it was like 80%. Now I think it's maybe 10%, but that is a possibility. Or they could just play with 11 teams or 13 teams. What do you guys think?
Well, real quick, I think if there is actually, if Colorado leaves the pack, I think that would almost. I know no one thinks that that's all about Washington and Oregon. I tend to disagree. I think that's also about Colorado this year, because I think that any type of deal that they're in is a very short-term deal. So I definitely think that they're going to want to try to get some Colorado games on Fox just for the show, just for all the look it's getting. They're selling out all their games. There's a lot of attention on them this year. Even if it's just for a short 3-term deal, the amount of times that you show Prime in Colorado probably will make up for. They're not going to pay them a lot. It doesn't work that way. You don't pass on what they offer before and then they offer you more. It's probably severely less. So I do think that they'll probably get a very small deal. So we're not going to see a whole lot here. But
okay, but what do you think, Moen?
I think the team that wants to leave most is Arizona. But Arizona doesn't have the chutzpah to go themselves alone. They need Colorado to make that move.
Yeah,
right.
I think if Colorado makes that move, Arizona follows them.
Yep.
And I do believe the Pac will sign some kind of media deal with the remaining 8 and backfill with 2. Probably San Diego State is probably now off the table for them. Although San Diego State might foolishly jump ahead again and do that. But the Big Ten, the Big Ten's not going to – I don't think the Big Ten adds anybody till 2026. Those schools don't have a place to go where they want to go. And until that place is there for them to land, they're just going to stick together and deal with whatever deal they can come up with.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. Hey, Sergeant Pickles, really quick to interrupt just 1 second. Pickles was asking for an invite, so I sent him an invite to the show. If you want to join us, Pickles, pick up that DM, and I want to hear from you. All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, that was it. No, it's just,
okay.
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I just if anybody leaves, it would be Colorado followed by Arizona, and it would stop.
Okay.
If anybody leaves, it's still going to be up to Colorado, and maybe that sparkling gem of hope that Fox Sports is back in it is enough to keep Colorado placated. But I don't know how many times you can be Colorado and be told and told and told and told.
And what's the minimum amount that Fox has to offer to make it realistic?
Money-wise or exposure-wise?
I think the calculation involves both.
I think it would involve exposure more than money. I think the money is going to be in the streaming package from Apple.
Okay.
The exposure is what I think they've been lacking on more than anything else.
I think everybody agrees with that.
And I think that'd be focused towards Colorado. If Colorado leaves, I think the point being, if Colorado leaves, I think Fox is largely out of that. You know, they might like Oregon, they might like Washington, but I think they want the Dion show. And so if Dion and Colorado are gone, I think there's a lot less value to Fox, at least for this upcoming year or two.
Okay.
So if they go, there's no deal, at least from them. Arizona probably goes with Colorado, and that's it. So that's what I was saying. I don't think Colorado with a G5 of any type is going to happen. I think SDSU was used. They were used.
SMU and SDSU were both used.
They were used as a threat, kind of like what the Big 12 did with getting 4 and then having the networks pay them to not add any more Gs. Right. I think the Pac was basically threatening to do the same thing.
All right, Greg, I know you're chomping at the bit. Go ahead.
If Colorado leaves, and if they do, I think it's going to be soon. Then all eyes will be on Arizona. And I think Arizona will do it. President Bobby Robbins
Get down.
has an affinity for Big 12. He knows sports more than any other Pac-12 presidents. Then all eyes on Arizona, and if they make the move, then all eyes will be on Arizona State, and that is the one in which we talked about this before on your show, Nathan. But Arizona State is the one that has two minds on this.
Right.
They do not want to go to the Big 12. They do not want to go to the Big 12. Michael Crow is not a Big 12 guy. He has basically voted throughout the decades, so the last decade, to not bring in any of these Big 12 schools in the Pac-12 when they thought about expansion. Michael Crow is not about going to the Big 12. But Arizona State is not. The Arizona schools are in agreement that they do not want a large streaming package of this Pac-12 media deal. They can't have a large streaming component. And Arizona State has complained behind the scenes. They have made their voice known. We know this. So they don't want to go, but they don't like what's going on. So all eyes on Arizona State. So Colorado, Arizona, all eyes on Arizona, then all eyes on Arizona State. In regards to Oregon and Washington, there are hurdles to remain for them to get into the Big Ten. We've said from the beginning that it's either 5 months from now or 5 years from now, we think they're going to join the Big Ten. But Kevin Warren was the number one hurdle because Fox did not want to deal with Kevin Warren anymore. Kevin Warren's out the door. But there are other hurdles still remain. Big Ten does not want to break into the Pac-12 unless the Big 12 does. So if the Big 12 cracks it open with Colorado, that hurdle's gone. But there's still a couple more hurdles left. One is some media companies are going to have to pay some really good money to get Washington and Oregon into the fold. And then as Moen Vision and Immaculate know, you got to swing the Big Ten presidents. It's a cost-benefit analysis, right? Do we bring in Oregon and Washington now after these things, let's say these things happen that we just stated? Do we bring Oregon, Washington now at 17, 18? Or do we wait 5 years from now, 6 years from now, if we add a couple of ACC schools with Oregon or Washington? Okay. So Colorado first, Arizona second, and we wait on Arizona State. And I think if Arizona State moves, then I think Utah's gone to the Big 12 as well.
Okay. All right, Pickles. He's been on and off a couple times. I'm not sure what's going on with our network connection, but appreciate you being here. Larry, you're in queue. Just hang out there, okay?
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Sorry about it. My StreamYard's having issues here. I have to run it through my phone. So
that's all right. Can you turn your mic down just a little bit?
I'll pull it away from my face. How about that?
That's good. That'll be fine. Yeah.
All right. How's it going, everybody?
Good.
Doing great. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. As you can imagine, I have a very different opinion about today compared to the general consensus, but that's all right. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it was some great, outstanding success. But especially, I don't know if you were able to catch, Klyavkov did like an extended 15-minute interview on a local station here in Seattle over the radio. And it was a lot more to the point. And they came after him. They asked him tough questions. And obviously he had to give some political answers. But it was put me a lot more at ease about it. For example, everyone's saying, oh, Colorado's AD left and this is a message and everything like that. One, you don't think they can just shoot each other a text and that they're having to play all these shadow games. And two, Klyavkov said that in like a standard academic year, the entire board of presidents and him, in a standard year, they'd meet about 3 times. They have met 30 times in the past calendar year. So if you don't think they're in communication, then that kind of contradicts that completely.
Has anybody ever said that? I don't think anybody's ever said that they're not in communication. I haven't heard that one time.
Yeah.
I just hear a lot of this, he's sending a message and they're doing this. It's like presidents at that level of academia don't play these stupid internet shadow games. They're direct in communication. I firmly believe that. You don't get
Okay.
to this level of an institution by playing, stupid games. You go and talk to people directly.
But they are
And I'm sure they've
people.
made it clear. Yeah, and I'm sure they've made it clear what their expectation is, and he's had to, they're not going to let him just BS him for a year. So they've
Right.
obviously had to have something of substance for them to be comfortable continuing this long.
Okay.
If you hear my son in the background, I apologize. He's very
That-
excited about the movie.
Yay. All right. That's fine. All right. Anybody have any questions for Pickles? One thing, if you don't know him, he's a UW backer. I'd call him a homer. And he very much would like the Pac-12 to survive at least long enough for a bridge for UW and Oregon to go to the Big Ten. So you guys have questions for Pickles?
If I could real quick, first off, I'd say Washington, my personal belief, already has their papers to the Big Ten signed. It's just a matter of waiting for it to get cleared. So no problem waiting on that. I do think you guys are probably going to get a bridge deal. And in terms of the AD leaving so quickly, I don't think it had to do with sending a message. I think he just didn't want to get asked questions on the way out.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And in terms of it, the other guy sending a signal, I think I'm just taking it at face value, bro. He said that they're going to get information by a certain day, and we haven't seen anything. So whether or not that's pressure or whether or not it just wasn't ready, or maybe they did get it and it's not public, I don't know. It doesn't look good. And to the outsider versus you, who probably have a lot more information and knowledge as being a part of that,
I wouldn't say that, but I do my best.
But I mean, you're in conversations and you catching things, even if just on the periphery, just kind of from an outsider view. Even though I do live in Phoenix, kind of follow ASU a little bit, it just didn't look good, man. And that seems to be the general consensus from media and from the outside. And so whatever the truth is, the perception matters. So I would say, if knowing that Washington likely has their ticket already punched to the Big Ten, does all of this kind of bother you to see people talking about the pack itself, or is it just because you're worried that maybe there isn't something there for Washington later? But because I always find Washington folks tend to be pretty chill about this whole thing. Like, they get it, like, we're good no matter what.
I don't totally agree with you on the Washington has their ticket punched. I think obviously, I don't want to sound arrogant, but I think we're obviously on a short list of sorts. If the Big Ten expands again, it's just a matter of if they expand again, when they expand again, and if it financially makes sense for them. And even Greg Sankey talked about, I know this is kind of a easy thing for him to say because both the Big and SEC are at 16, but he said there might be a limiting factor with adding any teams, no matter how much money they make you, that it's just not practical to run a conference above a certain size. And I do think there's an argument for that, because you're not going to go to 17 teams in the Big, you're going to go to 18 minimum, right? That's a huge conference with a lot of institutions and a lot of ways, not only to slice the pot for football money, but think about these people are all voting on the way your conference is run, the way your schools are run. They're voting on all this stuff. It's not just sports. And that is, the chancellors and presidents consider that kind of stuff, These are their peers that they're working with. So that's kind of one thing. I'm pretty chill about it because, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like if I got to just, won the lottery, take your pick. Washington is going wherever you like. Am I picking the Pac? No, nobody is. Name me one other school that wouldn't take a big deal if it's on the table, or a Big Ten deal.
Right.
So, we can kind of hash over whether or not we think Washington is, eventually bound for the Big Ten and when and everything. But I think I'm not worried about it because I think Washington will end up in a good spot either way. I love the Pac-12. I've grown in Pac-10 before that. I'm not quite old enough for the Pac-8, but I still love this conference. I love all the teams, and I understand the perception nationally, but it's been a fun conference the whole time, warts and all. And I think it does get forgotten about over here on the West Coast, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have exciting football, So I'm totally fine being in the Pac right now. If they sign a longer deal than people are predicting, I'm still okay with that. I definitely think all the chancellors got together and they sent George a list of things and said, these are the things you must meet. Go get it done. And he's not going to come to them unless he has a list of that stuff done. The mistake that he and some of the presidents have made, I think, in talking about it, if he just came out middle of last year and said, look, we have a lot to hash over. We're losing 2 teams, and it takes as long as it takes to get it right, and then just left it at that, I don't think half of the criticism that they have gotten would be as bad as it is. People might be irritated it's taken this long, but it's like, oh, well, he told you from the beginning, it takes as long as it takes to get it right. But that's not what they've done. And that has definitely been a criticism from me and other Pack fans.
Greg?
Can I ask Sergeant Pickles a question?
Of course, yeah.
Can you put
No,
up
not at all.
Can you put up that Ross Dellinger article?
I can.
Again?
Give me a second. Yep, I'll cue it up. Just a second.
I want to, and I know people are going to roll their eyes, but I want to read where the part where it says on Thursday, Pac-12 president. So go down,
Okay.
and I want Sergeant Pickles, as a Washington Husky fan, loves the Pac-12. By the way, so do I. I've been watching Pac-12 for 5 decades. As a Gopher guy. Put down.
Oh, yeah. Biggest bummer to me through all of this is that the Rose Bowl is basically no more in the way it used to be.
Yeah. That
Greg,
is.
Where's it at?
Go where on Thursday, Pac-12 presidents. Go where that's the first.
I'm looking.
No, okay.
You just passed
Right.
it.
Okay, in the middle, right here.
No, it's towards the end.
Oh, there it is.
There,
There we
right
go.
there.
Okay. So I'm
Can
gonna
I
read
can I
this.
ask when was this written? Is this based on today?
This
Yeah,
is
it was
about
an
30
hour
minutes.
ago. Yeah.
About an hour ago. Ross Dellinger. Okay, Yahoo Sports.
Okay.
Now I'm going to read from on Thursday down to the end, and I want your gut reaction to this. Okay. On Thursday, Pac-12 presidents and administrators met for what turned out to be another limited update on the progress of negotiations. Multiple sources confirmed to Yahoo Sports. A disappointment considering the Colorado's chancellor public comments earlier this week. DiStefano told the Denver Post that figures for a potential TV contract were expected to be shared Thursday. That was never the case, according to those within the league. Okay, so DiStefano, according to Ross Dellinger's reporting, put something there saying that we expected more clarity, we expected numbers, but that was never to be the case with other people that Ross Dellinger is talking about in the league. Back to the article, why did DiStefano make such a comment? Was he using it as a tool to put pressure on the commissioner? Some believe that to be the case. So some people that Dellinger are talking inside the Pac-12 believe that that's what DiStefano was saying. Impatience is growing. And then the very last part of the article, we need to see numbers, said one conference official. So they haven't, we've been at this for 12 months. They haven't seen real numbers yet. They just haven't seen real numbers yet. What is your gut reaction to that reporting from Ross Dellinger?
I'm sorry I cut out sorry to have you rewind a little bit, but I didn't quite get to the part with the exact comment. So we need to see numbers, said one conference official. So DiStefano, I would need to see his exact quote. And I understand it's all semantics and everything, but I think the words they choose are important. And you can read a quote 2 different ways. And one says, oh, he was like certain that they would have a deal on the table Thursday. And then another one is he's hoping to see a deal Thursday. So I'd have to see what he actually said.
He said that they needed to see clarity on Thursday.
They needed to see clarity?
Yes, that's the word DiStefano said in the Denver Post.
Right.
Okay. That's not the same as demanding a deal on the table Thursday.
No,
I understand it's semantics, but you kind of get what I'm saying.
So this is what we're talking about is at the end of the day, if we take what you said at the beginning, Pickles is wrote that these guys they're so important or whatever, they know how to do all this stuff. They wouldn't make mistakes like they've been making in the last year. If we're giving them the benefit of the doubt that today they're not sending texts to each other, and he's not trying to run out of the room so he can get to an airport because he doesn't want to answer questions.
Okay.
You can't have it both ways, right? Are they either communicating well or are they not?
DiStefano told the Denver Post that figures for a potential TV contract were expected to be shared Thursday. So they were expected to see some sort of numbers.
Okay, do we have any reason to believe that didn't happen?
Yeah, that did not happen.
They said they didn't do that. They didn't see anything on Thursday.
No, they didn't see
Okay.
it on Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay, then the question is why, and we can spitball into the, you know, I'm not sitting here trying to defend like the Pack isn't blameless in this whole situation. I'm just saying,
right.
I am fairly confident there is so much behind the scenes that we are not privy to, and people just let the speculation snowball a little bit too much, in my opinion.
Right. And Pickles, I have a question for you.
Shoot.
Thanks,
you
Sergeant.
mentioned that if any Pac school got an invite from the Big Ten, they would go in a heartbeat, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Well, don't you believe that's a little disingenuous to say that all 10 members are committed to each other?
It's not both
It's
ways.
really hard for me to you can't say that you're committed to the Pac-12, but then also say if the Big Ten comes calling, you would leave in a heartbeat.
Well, that's just me as a fan. I can't,
right,
you know.
Sure, I understand that, but you have to look at it from these presidents are saying those things. But we know Colorado's meeting with the Big 12. We know
Right.
Washington and Oregon have met with the Big Ten. We
Yes.
know Cal stalled their regents meeting trying to get a backdoor deal to get Cal, Stanford, Oregon, and Washington into the Big Ten.
That's the
So,
assumption, anyways. Yes.
Well, okay, yes. So that's what the regent said.
That's
The
what
regent
Richard
from-
Lee said.
Yeah, they were very adamant about Cal getting in, but I don't know if that's the same as the school, because the regents live in their own weird bubble where it has nothing to do with sports.
Sure, but we can agree there were discussions between at least two Pac schools with the Big Ten.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. So I just find it disingenuous, and I completely understand the tradition argument. We had a great conversation with this the other day, myself, Immaculate, and Larry, about maintaining the traditions in college football. And I don't think that expansion is necessarily going to eliminate that. I ultimately see a West Coast pod where you're going to see Washington, Oregon, USC, UCLA, Utah. You're going to have a mini Pac-12 pod in the big.
Yeah,
but I just
it'll
find it
basically be the Rose Bowl of old, the Pac-8 versus the way old-time Big Ten.
Right. But I just find it disingenuous for these teams to say that they're committed while they're talking to other people. It's like being in a relationship and having a Tinder profile.
My counter to that would be, well, what do you want the president? Do you want the president to come out and say, no, we're not committed to the Pac-12. We want a Big Ten deal, but it's not there right now, so we're here.
Right.
You really
Well,
think they're going to say that? You know?
It's better to say nothing.
Yeah. Why did they comment
That's
at all?
true.
I think
Absolutely. I'll fully concede that point.
Right.
And that's what I was saying before about the deal. It gets done when it gets done. Just make your statement and then say nothing after. You don't need to add on all the
messaging has been terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
They haven't, and that's probably been the biggest challenge, is if you would have said that last July, instead of immediately opening up and blasting the Big 12, knowing that it was the Big 10 that came in and take USC and UCLA. Nobody else did that. But then you attack somebody you don't need anything from, which is the Big 12. That's what started them down this hole. And the barrier to success now is so high that unless this Fox thing comes in and their exposure, they get 2 windows, they get a late Saturday night window, and maybe they get a midday window for Fox. I don't know what other thing they could provide to the league that will give them the exposure they need, even if we ignore the dollar amount. Say they were doing the service for free. There's not enough windows. As Sam Bradshaw, we've broken that down several times. All the TV windows have filled up. So the reason this is strung out as long as it is because while they might want to deal with the Pac-12, there's no time they can give them. There's not enough broadcast hours to get everybody the exposure they demand. Washington and Oregon are not going to play on the CW on a late Saturday night game. That's not going to happen. So
that would have been true either way because the Pac-12's deal was up last out of all these teams coming up. So I don't know. I understand your point. I'm not saying it's a good situation, but it would have been the reality either way.
But Pickles, that's not true. They had the first bite at the apple in July, August.
They were
last year.
18 months before Big 12.
Yeah, the Big 12 came in and snaked the deal because they basically, Fox and ESPN went to them and said, hey, they turned us down. You ready to go? And that's why immediately after they offered that deal to him, they said, we'll take it. Immediately, Klyavkov, and what did he say about the deal? Oh, it's not enough. We think we're worth a lot more than that. Them going early is only going to lower the bar for what we're worth. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about the specifics of when that deal was. I'm not going to pretend to be a Big 12 deal expert. All I can say about it is that the reason the Big 12 deal went a lot faster is because it was essentially an extension with some modifications, and the Pac-12 was always going to have to build one from scratch. So no matter what, it would have taken longer.
But they didn't. That's just it. The Big 12 wasn't looking to renegotiate. ESPN and Fox came to them when the
right, and they basically said, let's take our old deal, modify it a bit, and here you go. We'll do it again.
Except we're going to give you more money, even though you lost Oklahoma and Texas.
Yeah, but every conference is getting more money no matter what. Even the Pac's going to end up with more money than they used to have losing.
Not almost 60% more. They might go up a little bit, maybe 5% or 10%.
Right, but the SEC and Big Ten went up a higher percentage than that. I'm just saying all conferences are getting more money than they used to.
Then if that's
I understand we're quibbling over the percentages, but
well, I'm not quibbling over anything. I'm trying to understand. I think everybody's trying to understand how the Pac-12, even though their messaging has been poor, they turned around and they haven't controlled the narrative either. So
I don't think that matters to them, and I actually kind of agree. Their messaging should have been better, but as far as controlling the narrative, I don't think that matters to them at all. I don't think it should.
But
because you know what I mean, they can put out a good message and then the narrative goes where it goes and people speculate online. I don't think they should really care about that part.
Well, okay, yeah, the PR part.
It's just me. That's I'm just one dude sitting in a house out here in Washington.
No. Yeah, we appreciate you very much. Anybody else have any questions for Pickles? He's been a loyal viewer of my show for months and months now, one of the first ones, and so I really appreciate his opinion.
Here's your weekly edition of Ask the Pac punching bag, so have at it.
No, you're not.
No, it's great to have opposing viewpoints. I mean,
that's how we learn, Pickles. That's how we learn, right? One thing before you go, and this is a question to Greg, but I wanted to get Pickles' opinion about this before he leaves. A couple months ago, ASU Money Perch said if he believed the teams hadn't moved by May 15th, they wouldn't leave at all. Greg and then Pickles, what do you guys think about? By the way, Sticky Sports, thanks for the super chat. I really appreciate it.
Great question. Absolutely correct. Arizona State Money Perch knew about was one of the people who knew about the meeting that was going to happen on May 7th. And he thought if this thing went past May 15th, it would be better and better for the Pac. No doubt he has changed his thoughts on that throughout the other letters that he has sent since that. And we've had a couple of them. We've read a couple of them since then on our live show. So yeah, he has changed his thoughts on it. But at that time, he was one of the people, I can't really get into it, who knew about, there's a few, he and others knew, donors, Money Perch, knew about what was about to happen between April 28th and May 17th. It fell on May 7th. And so he thought things were going to explode at that point, but he was wrong. He was wrong on that.
What do you think, Pickles?
So we were talking, they gave May as a deadline that, if schools haven't gone to the Big 12, then it isn't going to happen type thing. Is that how I'm understanding that?
That's right. Yep, you got it right.
I think the odds of a team leaving have basically been unchanged the whole time because it's 100% dependent on the deal. I don't think there's any deadlines. I don't think there's anything like that. It doesn't increase over time or decrease over time. It's, put up or shut up, put the contract on the table. and then the school's going to make the best decision for their future. So it definitely feels like the narrative. Oh, as this thing goes longer and longer, will Colorado go? It's like it's always been the same. It's about the contracts. That's it.
I love it. I love it. Anybody else have any questions for Pickles before we let him go? Thanks so much, Pickles. We appreciate
no
your
worries.
time, really. Getting your
Thanks,
opinion about
Sergeant.
the Northeast. Very appreciate it.
Real quick to you, Bomber. What do you think of the Seahawks retros?
They're going to be okay. I don't know. We'll have to see. What game are they playing? Are they wearing them in? Do you know?
They're going to wear them against the Browns, and the Browns, I think, are wearing their retros that game too. I've got a Bobby Wagner jersey on order. I'm pretty excited.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I bought a Cam Chancellor one last year, so I'm not going to
There you
get
go.
a new one. But yeah, anyways, everybody, thanks to Pickles on the way out. Appreciate you being here, Pickles, and being a loyal viewer. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, I add as much of the discussion as I can. I don't claim to be a smart guy, but I try and pay attention. So other than that, thanks for having me, and go Dogs.
You're in the right room to not know anything. So we appreciate you being here. We'll see you later.
Bye.
All right.
Nice talking to you.
All right. Wow, that was awesome. Do you guys have before I bring on our next guest, do you guys have anything else you want to bring up before we start talking to our next guest?
I did, if I could, real quick.
Yes, please.
It was one of the things I saw from one of the schools. It was Stanford. And I kind of am looking at Greg on this one because I talked with him about something on his show about Stanford. And one of the reasons why I don't believe they actually want to join the Big Ten in anything other than a single sport. And that's with the Big Ten. If you join multiple sports, you are part of the Big Ten Academic Alliance, and a big part of that is the sharing of internships. And there wasn't much talk about academic stuff as a whole at this, but Stanford did. And Stanford's one of the things they were talking about is all the internship programs and opportunities there and how they control a lot of the tech sector through that, especially there locally. For them to bring that up in that situation when no one else is, I thought that was interesting. And so I still continue to stand on the point that Stanford does not want to join the Big Ten fully, and that so that there won't be any type of partnership there. And so when I see people talking about how Stanford's trying to hold the pack together, I believe that because that's their little kingdom. And if that starts to fall apart, they're probably leaving large sports mostly. So I found that very interesting for them to bring that up there when, I mean, who's talking about academic opportunities at their school when they're talking at media days for football? So just thought I'd bring that up as a different part of the media days that was kind of stand out and interesting. So kind of curious on your thoughts on that, Greg.
I am completely I don't have many thoughts on it. I'm completely baffled by Stanford. So
it's different.
Yeah, it's different.
People are putting the same rules on them in realignment as all the other schools, and it's just kind of hard to get across. People's like, you can't put the same rules of realignment. They don't apply to Stanford.
And I'm guilty of that. So
I think everyone is like. It's just weird. You'd think that Stanford would love to be a part of it, but there are little details that are actually very big. And
I don't know if I've always been wrong on Stanford or if I've just been wrong on Stanford in the last year.
Well, we'll find out more if they get left out or whatever.
I'm not sure what their plans are. Immaculate.
Here's the crazy take. I think there's better chance of Stanford joining the Big 12 than I think there's a chance of them joining the Big 10. There's your crazy take. Just because they wouldn't have to give up any of their little kingdom.
Right. All right, let's jump to Larry. Larry Pilgrim's joined the show. Appreciate it. He knew we were going to be doing this today, and I invited him to join us. Larry, what are your thoughts about Pac-12 Media Day today?
It was a little different. I mean, we knew there was nothing coming out. There was a big presser the day before stating you're not going to be, so anybody that spent any type of emotional expectation is just kind of like, that wasn't going to happen. We knew that wasn't going to happen. And then George K's never been one to be in front of a podium, but The other thing is I don't know. You guys have all probably been to meetings, and there's some things you're not supposed to say. It's or ask or whatever. It's the same thing for these pressers, and he definitely, the reporters were given instructions, and I feel like he was pressed and he didn't know how to handle that for sure. But that reporter also was not supposed to go where he went. So George is
You wait a
dumb.
second, Larry.
Yeah.
You're saying the reporter had rules?
Yes, they have rules. Yeah, like you've been
No.
in meetings before, and there's certain things like all
But
these
not
pressers.
reporters. I've
Yeah,
never been in
when
a
you're
meeting where reporters are told what to ask.
no, okay, in a different field. You've been a project manager. You've been on
Right.
projects. You've
Right.
had your company tell you when we go in and talk to the architect, we're not going to bring this up. This isn't the
Sure.
time or place. Don't bring this up.
Right.
It's the same situation when you get a press pass.
But journalists aren't that way, though. With freedom of speech and all that fun stuff.
Well, it's like if you can't, these are it's fine. You can do it, and it's been done before. A lot of people have been told with press passes, don't go here, and they go there, and so it's just. I mean, if you want to take the risk of losing your press pass, that's up to you.
Where did he go? That what?
Yeah,
where
I
did
know.
It was the tone.
that
It was
wasn't-
the tone. It was the tone.
It was just an honest question.
It was an innocuous
It was
question,
honest. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't disagree. It was an honest question. It was the manner in which the tone.
You mean the
The
sarcasm?
tone was not good.
You think the sarcasm is what did it?
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was very. The tone was not good.
But
And George doesn't do good with that.
But
George just doesn't do good with that.
But Larry, we're talking about adults here. We're not talking about children.
Or not, but it's. Oh my gosh.
You're frustrated by the question?
I'm not. No, I'm not
okay.
frustrated. It almost feels like there's a narrative being pushed here. And it's like, okay, we're disagreeing on how we saw it. There's, what narrative were you hoping for? I look at it. I just look at it the way I see it. I'm looking at it from a Pac-12 fan, and you guys are looking at it from an outsider. Greg may be going, okay, I'm a reporter. I want to get something from this. Big 12 people are like, let this fool open his mouth. I mean, there's just, everybody has a different slant they're looking for.
But if that's the concern, why have him talk at all?
Oh, trust me, you can tell they didn't want him in front of a mic. I mean,
and yet he was there.
Yeah.
He spoke for 20 minutes or something.
Yeah, but he has to be. I mean, he's got to be. Yeah.
You're saying two different things, Larry. I'm really confused, and maybe I'm the only one. You say he has to be there. That's his job.
Right.
At the same time, you're saying he's not good at it. Darn near incompetent.
Yeah.
Kevin Warren was terrible at communication.
Yeah.
His internal communication was horrific. It set the Big 10 presidents. They were very angry with them. Fox executives wanted him out of there. I mean, so communication's part of the job. Kevin Warren was horrible at it. There's been others that have been, yep.
Just imagine if he didn't show up. You think the media circus was bad before? Just imagine if he didn't show up. What kind of a media circus would be going on? Oh my gosh.
But you can't
They
argue.
They literally would be saying he's in Gitmo. Or he's next to Jimmy Hoffa.
Larry,
whatever.
Larry, nobody's saying that, right? None of us are saying that.
No, but I feel like you asked me for an opinion, and then you disagreed, which is fine. But then you tried to make me see your side of it, and it was like, I know your side. I was just trying to explain my point of view from my side. I don't need a narrative from everybody else to change my mind. I kind of saw what I saw.
That's fair.
And so
that's fair.
I guess I'm trying to put my emotions aside and just kind of say how I feel. So,
okay.
But yeah. And I mean, it's one day, there's a reason it was one day. It's because of this. It's basically a circus right now. They're trying to avoid the media. I mean, it's obvious.
Hey, Larry.
Yeah.
I agree with you that if a deal comes about, if something gets shown, today doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Like it won't matter one iota. It's just, this is kind of like, all of us were waiting for this day. We were looking forward to seeing a deal before this. So it seems like a big deal right now. And I get it, people from the PAC side who are like, guys, this isn't that big of a deal. You're probably right. But people were paying more attention to this 1 day media day than they were the SEC 4 days. We're talking about the SEC football.
Yeah.
And people were not paying attention to it because they were looking forward to this 1 day. So in that regard, when people were like, and it was only 1 day and that, blah, 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 bad thing, more people were paying attention to this tiny little media day held in a nightclub in Las Vegas than they really were to the SEC. So I think that's why people are really kind of energetic in any way. So no one is thinking that you need to think different. And the same thing goes to pickles. Like it's okay to have a different perspective on this. In fact, I think it's good.
Right. That's the thing is certain people stand in a certain position for their own reasons. They have their own bias. They have their own ideas. They're going to, when something's they have an expectation of what they want to see. And so what I wanted to see is something smooth, which I knew that wasn't going to happen with George. But I also I've seen it in press reports before, especially in White House pressers. It's like there's narratives of pressers. I've watched enough of them to know. And
Larry,
anyway, it's just my narrative. And so actually I got cloak and dagger. That's kind of what I called about.
So can I, before you do that, by the way, Larry is also a partner. He's a contributor to the show. So if you're new to watching Larry, I defend him. Anybody coming out with statements, you're gonna have to go through me to get to Larry Pilgrim. But I did have one question, and then I want to hear your cloak and dagger, Larry. The question I have for you, and this is what I was trying to get to, is do you think any question is fair? Do you think it's fair that people ask questions in a vacuum?
I think freedom of speech is it fair? I think that's the wrong word.
Oh, okay. What would you call it?
Do I think it was correct? No.
Okay. All right. That's cool.
The question was correct. I don't think there's an issue with him asking that question at all. Even though he probably wasn't supposed to. It was really the condescending, you owe me an explanation, George attitude and tone that he had.
Right.
If you go back at that and listen to how he said it, that is he completely had a you owe me an explanation.
I think a lot of people do think he owes them an explanation.
Right.
Right. And I'm not defending him. I'm just saying the rest of the world is immaculate saying they are expecting to receive an answer.
But the day before you were told there wasn't going to be one. So why did you press something that you already knew there wasn't going to be an answer to? So it's kind of like you tell your kid not to do something and they cross the line. Is the kid wrong for crossing the line, even though it was, it's just one of those things.
But to get back to that, all he said was there wasn't going to be a deal. That in no way says the next day you can't ask the question.
Right. And so
that's okay. Yeah. So let's get on your
interpretation. It's for interpretation.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Now you had cloak and dagger. Let's do what you wanted to talk about. I know that's important.
Okay, so Greg,
yes,
know who do you think is up for the presidency of Stanford?
Well, I've heard Arizona's name, Bobby Robbins out there.
And Ohio State's ex-president.
Really? They're going to have some issues there after just getting over a scandal, because I'm not going to get into specifics, but she had a scandal at Ohio State that was
cloak and dagger. How's Bobby Robbins involved? Cloak and dagger. If that's not a cloak and dagger, can you, with all of this,
back it up. Why are you? Who's saying?
It's been out for months. It's been out for months that the situation with the Stanford president.
I know that, but why are we talking about the lady from Ohio State?
Because she was.
I know
she was on a candidate
list. Stanford, but who who was saying that she's the possible replacement?
I'm trying to remember what website I saw it on. Who was the other? There was like 3 or 4 of them, but it was kind of weird that I saw her at the top because, like you guys said, the scandal, and it was like, huh? But Bobby Robbins is literally like, he's not in the catbird seat, but he's got a good path.
Yeah.
And so Cloak and Dagger, I'm just trying to.
Cloak and Dagger.
I'm giving you some more Cloak and Dagger stuff here, Greg.
That's something we got to chase down, Larry. I think that's something we got to chase down. I got a couple questions for you while you're here. So I'm not sure, Kadu, who said this statement. Does this ring true to anybody that heard this today? This is a super chat from Kadu. He says, with the pro rata clause, ESPN gave the Big 12 a hunting license to get specifically from the pack. Get schools from the pack. Has anybody heard that?
I haven't seen the quote. I happen to believe that it's true, but I haven't seen the quote.
It makes sense.
I think someone said in chat that actually came from a viewer named Texas Shooter who was on a show earlier. So
okay.
He's quoting someone else that made a chat comment.
Right. Okay, that makes more sense. And I agree with everybody else. I think this is probably a true statement, but I didn't know who it came from. All right, and then here's another question, another super chat from Daniel Gygax. He says, Stanford and UC have cancer in Children's Hospital. That's just a note.
That's great. Share their research then. That's a holdup. They don't want to share research with the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Everybody in the Big Ten shares research.
Yeah.
Everybody with the cancer hospital in the Big Ten has to
share. Yeah, they share their digital libraries. They share everything.
Yeah. It's equality in the Big Ten. We share everything, even playoff revenues. So
thank you very much.
The Big Ten. Yeah. So if you're going to join, you got to contribute. I'm sorry, you don't get.
If you got to join, you got to give some of your hard-earned money to the Minnesota Golden Gophers. That's the rules.
If Stanford joins, it's a net negative for them, not a positive.
Right. They would lose money.
They would lose. They would lose research. The rest of the Big Ten gains a lot from them, and they don't gain all that much from the Big Ten.
Really quick, if you're in the comment section and you want to get your message read, either do a super chat or you join the show. I'm looking for comments from people that are subscribers to the show right now. So if you subscribe, it's actually cheaper than doing a super chat. Let's see here. Anybody else? While I'm looking, anybody else have any questions for Larry while he's here?
I do.
Yeah, please.
So this report that possibly Fox is back in the running with the pack.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that? What can you say about that?
Maybe for an FS1 spot. I agree with Nathan. Fox has already got one big noon, and they've already got one spot for the Big 12. So I can't see anything outside of like a Friday game on the major network of Fox. FS1 is maybe a tier 2, tier 3 type setup would be about the only thing I could see. So
it doesn't ring a bell then with anything.
No. Last I heard that I reported 2 weeks ago, I haven't heard anything else. Obviously, if somebody else comes back to the table, which is weird because somebody said something about a new partner, not about a re-entrance, which was kind of strange. I don't know who a new. Yeah, and so
and we haven't heard. I don't have a link to that Fox report.
Yeah, I did give you that.
Link. Did you? Oh,
yeah.
okay. Let me see if I can find it. Hang on a second.
I did see somewhere that someone said that it was Ion that came back into talks, but I don't know if that's verified or reality.
Oh, it's the 247 report, right, Greg? I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right one.
Go down a little bit there. And
yeah, let's do this really quick
sources.
Since everybody's here. So this is the 247 report that literally came out 5 minutes before we went to show. And I think this at the top, all this stuff basically says, these are the schools that we're looking for the Big 12 possibly moving. And then where's the quote at?
It's
Greg,
in
did you
there.
see it?
Keep going down. It's in there somewhere.
Let's see, because I want to make sure that we quote it directly. I like this quote, by the way, from Mark Harlan at University of Utah, who's been the banner for the Pac-12. I think your words and actions speak for themselves. We are a proud member of this conference and look forward to its future success. I really like that quote. I like Mark Harlan a lot. Let's see. I want to make sure we get this quote correct.
Huh.
Did you see it, Greg?
No, let me take another look. I know I did see it though. I know
Okay,
I
yeah.
am
If you can tell me which paragraph that's in, then I'll absolutely show it. While I'm doing that, I want to bring up this one. Where's it at? Okay. I don't know if you guys follow Sam Bradshaw from 365, but with Colorado, we all know that they did an analysis for how much money they would have had if they had stayed in the Big 12 versus when they moved to the Pac-12. Now, let's be very clear. This has nothing to do with research dollars, has nothing to do with the education funding. This just has to do with value for the media dollars. And the delta, or the change from one to the other, was a loss of almost $70 million over that period of 12 years. So go ahead, Larry.
So in context,
right,
that is Baylor's income. And if you go look at West Virginia's income in the same years, it's basically the same as Colorado. So it's like saying, Texas made more than Baylor. Baylor made more than West Virginia. And so if you're comparing, actually West Virginia and Colorado were pretty much dead even for their whole existence in the new conferences. So I don't think it's fair to compare Baylor's income and Colorado. And that is actually just from the distribution from the conference. Yeah. And
that's
so he's comparing them to Baylor, which is the middle, instead of Colorado's the bottom of the Pac-12, the same as the bottom of the Big 12. They're very equal. So just for context.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you for putting that in frame, because I didn't make that clear. It does say that at the bottom. So I appreciate you resetting the dial, as it were. The one thing that I think that Sam was saying is Colorado looks like they think of themselves as a peer to somebody like Baylor. I'm not sure they compare themselves to the bottom team in the Big 12, which is West Virginia. By the way, all those dollars are different from each school.
Right.
So if they were looking at Colorado and Baylor, they want to be peers. At least Colorado would like to make more money. It just shows that there is more money on the table that they're currently not getting in the Pac-12. That's what that number comes from.
They don't invest. Colorado does not invest in their athletics. And I mean, any Big 12 team that's there invests more than Colorado. They care more. I mean, there is no question to me. They don't care about athletics like Big 12 teams do.
I appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Did you find it, Greg? Did you find the paragraph?
I did forward you a picture.
Oh, here it is. I'm not going to tell you our media deals are coming in. Let's see if I can find that.
I don't know. Maybe he took it out of the. I don't know. I don't.
Yeah, I didn't see that paragraph. So
or maybe I gave you the wrong article. But that is
okay.
If you show that picture.
Yeah, I can. Let me see if I can do that.
Yeah, 247 Sports.
Yep. Let me bring it over. Hang on. What I don't want to do is I don't want anybody to think we're taking things out of context.
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not making it. I'm not.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
No, this is potential good news for the Pac-12. I'm not making it up.
Let me just drag this over here. Okay, so this is the quote, and it's hard to bring down. I'm losing control of my show here. Why won't that screen share? Hang on a second. Just give me a second. I don't know why that's not letting me. All right. That's the whole thing. I'll just have to call it that. I'm not going to tell you where our media deals are coming in. Klavkov told 247 it will be enough for them to sign their grant of rights. That's the important kind of milestone. Other TV partners have reportedly entered the fold in recent weeks as discussions for the Pac-12's media rights stretches into the 11th month. Fox is among them. So that's the report.
Yes.
And I want everybody's opinion about that because that's a big deal if it's real.
That's a big deal. Yes, it is. Potentially very good news for the Pac-12.
What do you guys think? Larry, first of all, this affects you the most. What do you think about that quote?
I think, yeah, my gut goes to FS1.
Okay.
From what I heard 2 weeks ago is they didn't have a linear partner locked down. They were sub-licensing. So it would make complete sense. FS1 has a late night slot. If ESPN is not wanting to grab it, then that makes sense. That's where I go in my head right off is FS1 late night.
It makes sense.
Moen, what do you think about that?
Again, I think it's because Fox wants Oregon, Washington content. I don't know how many games Fox has of the Big 12 in the afternoon. Do they have enough for the whole season on their linear networks? Do you know that, Greg?
Are you talking about the Big 12 or the Big 10?
The Big 12 package in the afternoon on Fox.
All their windows are full, if that's what you mean.
Okay.
Yeah,
Fox has
they
a
don't have
3:30, 4 o'clock. Fox has a 3:30, 4 o'clock for Big 12.
Right. So
but
are
that's
all
what he's
those
talking
filled?
about. Yeah.
If all those are filled, then it has to be a primetime game. And I know they have baseball and playoffs and situations like that, but I can't see them making a deal for FS1 content.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that seems like a plausible scenario to me because FS1, if it can't be your top games, it can't be your, maybe a tier 2 type of stuff. I think it's plausible. I don't think, FS1, I'm trying to remember how many games total Fox has with football has with the Big Ten package.
It's
30?
just one, isn't it?
No,
So
no.
One game per day.
No. What I mean by that is Fox and FS1. The total amount of those two, and I know it was listed in article, and I forget what that number is because Big Ten has FS1 games. I just don't think. I don't think it's like. I've talked about this over and over again. I think FS1 right now, what Larry's saying is plausible. Again, how much money is Fox willing to fork over for that? Again, could that be one piece of kickoff cobbling together these linear partners to get good enough to where everyone's going to sign on and sign the grant of rights? It's potential. 247. I came from that world, and I if they're saying sources are telling them that, I used that image and I forwarded it on to people that I know. And so people are hunting that down to see how true that is. So hopefully I'll know more tomorrow. But I thought that's, any kernel of a leak of positive stuff, that's what I'm looking for the Pac-12. I saw that and I thought we should discuss it.
I'm going to do some call outs really quick here. We've got 5 new signups, and I'm not like some people. I don't have the special clap like Greg does, and there's other shows that do a lot of shout outs with music. So I'm just going to read their names if that's okay for everybody. K-Do is a new subscriber. We have Sticky Sports as a new subscriber. Mark Roker is another new subscriber. Vernon Sheldon Witter, and last but not least, Blake. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you being here. We really appreciate you participating in the show. And I want to get more of your comments. I'm going to post a link. If you want to join the show as a commenter, please feel free to do that. I'm not sure how many I can get through in the next 40 minutes, but we'll try to get through as many as we can. Did anybody else want to say anything after Greg?
Yeah. Is there anything that prevents Fox the linear version of Fox from doing regionalization broadcasts in that 3:30 to 4 p.m. time slot, because maybe Fox is going to buy it for their West Coast stations and run Big 12 in the Central and East Coast, or let their individual affiliates make a decision on what game they want to run in that slot.
Yeah, it's just a guess. I would guess they wouldn't be able to do that. You're talking about like within the Big 12 media package with Fox?
Right. Does it guarantee that they're going to get certain coverage throughout
I would think
X number of affiliates?
I would think so.
Is it run through the affiliate network, though, or is it dictated by corporate? That's the question. Because they do it by regions, right? Isn't it still regionality?
Right. There's still
Right.
regionality for different
Yeah,
stations. So I wondered
that's what I was
if maybe
thinking.
Fox was looking for regionalization for West Coast.
Right. That's very fair. In fact, here's a comment from Vernon who just said that. How is a regional broadcast going to help PAC's visibility problem? I think that's been the problem all along with like somebody like a CW coming in. They're broken up. There's no corporate leadership there at all. It's all affiliates. So, and there's some games, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, and Larry, definitely, if you disagree with me, let me know. If you were Utah and you had a game that your primary carrier was Apple, which is where you've been thinking it's going to be for a while now, but they've subbed games out to say an Ion, and one of those games is Utah versus Oregon State, and it's only seen by a third of the country. As a Utah fan, are you excited about that, or are you willing to sort of subvert your own needs and desires to say this is for the greater good for the conference? Because I think that's one question that has been out there for a long time, and I don't know that anybody's ever given a proper answer to it.
I still I've come to the acceptance that people are going to watch their team first, which is mostly East Coast. The SEC people are going to watch their team. They're going to watch their conference.
Right.
The Pac-12 is just not in the best location, because I don't know about anybody else. I'm not searching for an out-of-conference game if my team is on, or somebody I'm going to be matching up with next week, or one of the better teams in my conference. I'm going to be watching them. I'm not looking for Big Ten. As a Pac-12 fan, I'm not looking for SEC games. I would rather watch my conference, because those are the teams I play. I want to see how they're doing. So to me, this national exposure, I think, is a lot overblown, because people aren't searching for the Pac-12. Even if they're on the main network, you're still going to get the same viewers pretty much, unless it's stuck on an over the air with somebody that's got 30 stations with an antenna.
Right.
I mean, so I don't know of any of you that are going searching for, unless you're one of those, you'll search for you'll go through 3 games at a time as commercials are on.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead. Immaculate, what were you going to say?
Yeah, when I'm watching, I stick like 3 or 4 games or so, and I just use the last button. I go between them.
Right.
So like I'll have a main game that I'm on, and that's, as you're saying, your favorite teams, whether it's conference or whatever your main interest is. But yeah, I follow a lot through. So to me, it does matter where the pack is. Now, being in Arizona, whatever it is, I'll probably get to see it. But if they're on, say, Apple mainly and just streaming, I'm probably not going to see it as much, because it just becomes harder for me to then get over to that. Whereas my TV I'll just be on if it's on cable. I don't care if it's on Ion. I don't care if it's on any other type of channel that's not considered a main one. I can get that real quick. I could just have it on my last button and get right back to it. So I think a lot of general football viewers and people who are maybe interested in the larger landscape, if the pack does go largely streaming, it's going to take that away from us. Now, you as a main pack fan, that's where you would go, and that's fine. But I do believe that would decrease even further their visibility. And I think that could, I'm not sure how much that would affect it, but generally speaking, I would say it's a negative to some degree.
Exposure is the big deal for recruiting. Yeah. I know that is a definite concern. Shooter Tech says Fox has enough inventory. We've spoken about this. I know it's been spoken about on Greg's show. All the time slots are filled up. We've done those analysis with Ryan and Jeff Fuller. He's saying they don't need any more, and if they do get one, it's probably going to be that FS1, FS2 slot. But I think what's interesting is we don't want to lose track of. I think Larry's opinion is the overall Pac-12 fan opinion. Even Sergeant Pickles basically said they don't really care. They just want to watch their league, and they think that all this stuff that's been built up over the last year, talking about exposure and some of these other things, aren't as big a deal to them as a conference. I'm just wondering how it makes everybody else think about them in the leagues in general and their perception.
Well, the coaches care, the donors care. They don't want to put money into something that is not getting any. The level of exposure doesn't equal what you can get in the Big 12. The donors absolutely care. I do have a question. Can I?
Of course.
It's a scenario, just speculation. Speculation only. As the Golden Blue dude said, go entering the speculation zone. Okay?
Yeah, right.
Just a scenario I'm throwing out there. I'm going to spell out the scenario, and then I want Larry, Moen, and Immaculate Nathan to say, what do you think the Pac-12 would do in this situation? Colorado leaves. Again, speculation. Colorado leaves, goes to the Big 12, and Arizona does not go to the Big 12. Arizona decides, no, we're not going to do it. We're going to stick with the Arizona State. We're going to stick with the Pac-12 schools. There are 9 schools. They're working out a media deal, right? At this point, do they expand? Do they expand with the 10th school? You'd think they would. But if they expand with the 10th school, they would want a 10th school for 2024. It would cost San Diego State $34 million. What is George Kickoff and the Pac-12 presidents willing to do? Are they willing to help out San Diego State? Would they want to expand? Or would they expand with the 10th school, somebody else, and then have 2 other ones, for 2024, 2025? What do you think the Pac-12, the commissioner and the presidents go for if they lose just one school, Colorado?
I say they stay at 9, go to an 8-game schedule, and you get more home games and you cover your losses with more home game receipts.
Larry?
They would just add San Diego State.
And then do they subsidize the $34 million?
No, it would be like every other team in every other conference that ever's moved. They negotiate it. And they would be fine. They're, I think they would. I don't think the Pac would help San Diego State. Just moving them up and giving them a half a share is helping them.
So. Moen, what do you think?
They have to add, whether it's San Diego State or not. I don't know if I'm San Diego State, if I want to, I'd make sure that there's something on paper before I would do anything again.
Yeah.
But they probably have to add, probably Colorado State or San Diego State. They might try and salvage some of the Denver market.
So, Greg, did I hear you right? You said Colorado left, or you said Arizona left?
The scenario is Colorado leaves, and it's only Colorado leaves. Arizona stays in the Pac-12. What does the Pac-12 do at that?
They bring in CSU. I think San Diego State and SMU or SOL, to use a lot of acronyms. Because we went through, if you watched any of our shorts over the last 2 weeks, me and Ute, our shorts have shown that CSU does massive amounts of research dollars. They are definitely more aligned with their academics and all that. And it would replace Colorado in the Colorado market. I think they'll recruit Southern California through Arizona if the Arizonas don't leave. That's my opinion. I don't know. Did you have a follow-up to that? Did you want to? No,
I just wanted to put that scenario. I wrote that in my notes because I think it's a pretty interesting scenario if that unfolds.
Right.
What is the Pac-12? What would their media partners think? What would Fox, I'm sorry, not Fox, but whoever their media partners turn out to be, Would they go San Diego State? If they're talking about negotiating that $34 million, I don't think the Mountain West Conference is going to knock that down too many dollars.
They need the money.
Yeah, well, that and they just went through all this stuff with them. I think
Right.
San Diego State's leverage is a lot less. I think Mountain West Conference would probably hold them up for pretty much all that money. So San Diego State would have to come up with $30 million or whatever. So I don't know. I think that's why I threw it out there. I'm not sure what the Pac-12 would do.
Sergeant Pickles, again, who's a subscriber and was on the show a bit ago, he said he's summarizing what we just had the discussion right before this about if they'd be okay with just getting whatever coverage they can get as a Pac-12 fan. Does that matter? And he says, yeah, that's what they're looking for. Everybody knows the Pac-12 network was such a disaster that the Pac-12's, no matter what happens, they're going to be digging out from underneath that hole for a while. So let's see here. There was another comment. Give me 1 second. This one I thought was interesting from Big 12 fan. He says visibility is huge, or should be huge for all schools. If regionalist is the goal of the pack, why should they settle in to being the fifth? Let's see. They should settle in to being the fifth best conference. Larry doesn't seem to think that. Maybe it does matter, but he doesn't necessarily think that's a deal breaker. If they're settled as that third or fifth conference, is that okay with everybody?
Well, if you're getting OTA, whether it's regional or not, you're still getting exposure.
Right.
If Fox buys a matchup and they've got Oregon versus Oregon State, let's say they're guaranteed that game, they could air that game in the larger markets where it's going to get a better rating, better ad buys, try and make up some money that way. Obviously, no, it's not ideal. You can't just be completely regionalized, but it's a component. It's better than being behind a streaming platform, obviously.
I don't know. We're a bunch of old guys trying to figure out what young people are doing, so I think it's probably the wrong panel.
Maybe that's possible, Larry. Hey, you're old. I'm not old.
Hey now.
Mark Rooker has basically just said that. He says only diehards will go through the paywall. Greg Flugar doesn't even subscribe to the Pac-12 network. He has a college football show. So what?
I have the highest level of Comcast cable.
Yeah.
And I would still have to subscribe to the Pac-12. I have SEC network. I have ACC network.
Right.
I don't have the Pac-12 network.
And I don't think we can answer those exposure questions until we get farther down the road. Those questions we'll figure that out over time, whether that has a big effect or not.
Right now, is exposure, these kids and stuff like that. Like I know when MLS, if you were a season ticket holder, MLS, you got a Apple subscription. So I don't know how that works. If they give these kids and their families some subscriptions, if they get in with like one of the, like everybody has been talking, like a Roku, who knows? I just know a lot. Like both of my sons use streaming. They don't have, and they get everything they want to watch through that. So I don't know. Exposure's, I guess, in the eye of the beholder.
Well, the other thing I would add behind a paywall is the scheduling. It's going to be much more difficult to schedule big out-of-conference games.
Yes.
If those teams know that game away at Washington is going to be behind an Apple TV paywall.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's going to be tough, and that hurts your exposure too, because you're not having those key out-of-conference games anymore because brands like Ohio State or Florida or, Texas don't want their fan bases to miss out on that one game a year behind a paywall.
Kickoff actually talked about that in an interview later on in the day, saying that they're already having difficulties with scheduling.
Yes.
But with the, I don't know if he said Ohio State or, but that was basically what it's saying. Exposure is that was always going to be the biggest issue after October 30th for the Pac-12 is to get a deal that's going to be good enough for exposure to keep all the schools together. And so that's why, again, I go back to, FS1 is a decent linear partner, if it's cobbled together with some other stuff, like a CW or, I mean, I can see, it's possible that Kliakov can still thread the needle. What I'm a lot shook by when it comes from the Pac-12 perspective is there's still no leaks. Other than this Fox thing, there's still no leaks. And it's an automatic, man. People were expecting leaks. Even the Denver Post writer, McNeely, thought there'd be leaks. I talked to people who thought there'd be leaks. If there was something there, if something would leak out. And basically that hasn't. So people are very perplexed behind the scenes. But, maybe George Kliakov has got it. But I hope that like Chancellor DiStefano, other presidents, athletic directors, I hope they're getting some sort of evidence, some sort of steam, some sort of intel from somebody outside of George Kliakov and his reporting, his negotiation staff. I hope they're getting something like, there is something here. There is something here. Instead of relying on what's coming from the Pac-12 Commissioner's office. I know that sounds horrible for me to say that, but at this point, after 12 months, after all of this, we're going to see something, we think we're going to see something, not from George Kliakov himself, from athletic directors and presidents saying, we think, mid-March, da-da-da, and it hasn't happened. I think they're getting all their information from the Pac-12's commissioner's office, and I hope they're spending time really trying to figure out if this is real, that George Kliakov, this hope, we're in the near future, we're going to get a deal done. I hope they're seeing some sort of evidence of that outside of the Pac-12's commissioner's office.
If I may, real quick, we're talking about future trends. One future trend that you can guarantee is that young folks get older, they have families, they get homes, houses, and once you start to have all your activities start to focus around that and in the home, they're going to do more cable. When they're younger, they're moving around, they're going around using their phones. Streaming's good for that, but I don't think just because they're doing so much streaming now at a younger age that there's no room for cable in the future. And so I kind of think that this hyped look towards streaming is a little overcharged. It's understandable, but I don't think it's going to go as far as people think it is. People have been saying, like someone in chat, cable is on its way out. They've been saying that for at least
decades,
over a decade, 2 decades. It's
decades,
not.
Yeah.
What may happen is the way cable pushes so much on you, that may come to an end, and they may allow you more control over what channels you get instead of forcing you to take this in order to get this. But I just can't believe it's going anywhere. They just need to compete. And the streaming option, it's great for like if you have a very focused desire what you want to watch, but it just doesn't beat cable if you want to watch all of the options out there.
And I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
If let's say Apple has the major part of the Pac-12 media package, right? Primary rights holder, Apple TV. They're going to do the tier 1 games for Pac-12. I hope for Pac-12 schools that Apple TV kind of goes all in college football then, right? Hire these big time analysts, announcers, analysts, pre-game, post-game, talk about college football, talk about everything college football, but focus on the Pac-12, because that's also what you get from Fox and ESPN. They get the articles, people are talking about it, they have their podcasts, they're talking Big Ten, SEC, they're making predictions, Apple TV, hopefully, if they get the tier 1 for Pac-12, they create like this Apple TV college, world, galaxy.
I reported that.
Huh?
I reported that my source 2 weeks said that they're going to have an Apple game day.
Yes, and yes, you did. And if all that happens, if they can create this Apple TV College Galaxy, then it could work a couple years down the line. And it will be fascinating to watch if that would occurs. It can't be just streaming, it can't be just, let me check a game, Apple TV, and then nobody talks about the Pac-12 from Monday through Friday.
Right.
So but I do remember Larry reporting that. Yep.
Let me and I think Larry might have been one of the first ones to come out with that. It was over a month ago. So Vernon, one of our subscribers, he says, look what parent is going to want their athlete kid to go to the Pac if they get such limited visibility? What player would want to go to the Pac if they have dreams of the pros? I don't think that's a thing. Pros know where to find people. You don't have to be on TV to go to the NFL. And then one other thing, and then we got R. Graw has joined the show. Graw, you're going to need to unmute yourself, just so you know. Blake with a super chat. Thanks, Blake. Really appreciate it. He says, is Fox planning on using the 10-ish mil they were going to use for Big 12 pro rata, but instead offer that to the Pac-10, partner with Apple, and that's the deal? Anybody think that's the possibility?
Well, that'd be certainly right up there for like tier 3 rights or tier 2 rights on FS1 or FS2.
Right.
But I want to go back to the other point about cable.
Yeah, go ahead.
The other thing people have to realize about cable is cable's finding new ways to deliver its product to you. I subscribe to YouTube TV. There's no cable out where I live, but I get all my cable channels. It gives me all the functionality of cable. Hulu does something similar with their Hulu Premium, I believe. You've got Sling.
Hulu Live. Yeah.
There's lots of options that are hybrid between cable and streaming that still are going to put that out in the viewer space.
That's totally fair. Graw, welcome to the show. First time caller, as they say on the radio. What do you want to talk about?
Thanks. I just sort of tuned in. I stumbled across the channel. I've called in before, not in this channel, usually the Voice of College Football.
Okay.
I'll pop in there sometimes, but from the little bit that I guess I've heard, a lot of this is, talking about the Pac and the potential, what's their deal going to look like. And a lot of, the last however many months, a lot of people were talking about the idea of streaming and how that would be a bad idea. And I definitely agree with that to a point. However, is it really, I guess when you really think about it, and it sort of alluded to a second ago, when you think about it, is it, so long as it's not something, let's say like Apple TV, and it's maybe something along the lines of Prime, is it that bad when you think about it? Because I don't know about you guys, and I don't know about the people that are in the chat, but I am one of the many people who have cut cable, and I sort of did away with it, and I don't necessarily care so much about that. I've sort of switched over to streaming services personally. Now, granted, I do have live TV with Hulu, and as was mentioned, that's a bit of a hybrid because it is streaming, but you also get your big channels that sort of go along with it too.
Right.
But again, even so, is it necessarily going to be like a death blow like some people make it out to be, when streaming, for the most part, while cable is so important, streaming definitely seems to be the way of the future?
Well, it's, for one thing, it's not point centered, right? So you can be anywhere. Like Moen was just talking about, you don't have to have access to a cable network like Comcast or Charter or something. So just because it's disconnected, that by itself is decentralized. So that's a big deal. Part of it is the access might be higher, but it also means that your carrier fees are not necessarily the same as they were when you were on a cable or over the air. You're not getting a per dollar amount for the people that are watching online. And so it changes the numbers. What conference do you follow, Graw?
Me personally, the Big Ten. The Big Ten. So I've got no problems in terms of conference drama with that,
right,
because the Big Ten sort of rolling in cash right now.
Right.
But like I said, it's one of those deals where, well, and the other thing, I guess the other end of it too, something that I sometimes maybe doesn't get brought up is the Big Ten does a really good job, not only with its TV partners and the deals, but with the Big Ten network. Actually, it's very well done. There's a lot of eyeballs on that because the markets that the Big Ten has gobbled up over the years. That's the entire reason why they took Maryland and Rutgers to expand the viewership.
Right.
But what about like the PAC network? I feel like there's no way that brings that much value to the conference, especially in terms of like the idea of like these TV deals and things like that. It almost to me seems like it's counterproductive to keep that when you could be giving more content potentially to a Fox or a CBS or whoever else.
Greg, do you have any information on that about what they're going to do with the Pac-12 network? I know there's been a lot of ideas. Someone would they sell it to Apple and that's their broadcasting wing, but there's nothing certain on that, right?
No, it's just no. I mean, look, if for example, if the Pac-12 was able to bring on the CW as a potential linear partner, would the Pac-12 network be the production arm of the CW? Probably, right?
Okay.
So, but yeah, there's, we don't, I don't think anyone truly knows except for maybe Klickoff, maybe some presidents, what's going to happen with the Pac-12 network. Maybe if they have a deal with Apple, maybe they sell the whole thing to Apple, or it's the production arm of Apple. Because Apple TV, they don't have a production crew ready to do live college sports. So I don't know what the answer is. Don't know what's going to happen with Pac-12 network.
Immaculate, Moen, Larry, you guys have any comments about the Pac-12 network? Larry may.
It's been suggested that Apple take it over for production purposes.
Right.
Is all I know. Because it does have, it's set up with fiber optic and everything, software, hardware to distribute. So whether they roll that up into one or not, I don't know. If Apple is the main carrier, I could definitely see that happening.
Hey, Nathan, I got to go.
Yeah, okay, Greg. Yeah,
Okay.
we can wrap this up. I know 2 hours is a long
but
time.
I got to take off right now. Thanks for everybody for having me on, Nathan. I appreciate it. Larry, Moen, Immaculate, Argraw, appreciate you all for having me. Everybody in the chat room. Going to be a very busy next few days, so hang in there.
When's your next show, Greg? Do you know?
I don't think it's going to be tomorrow.
Okay.
But I think we're going to do one late Sunday night. So
Okay.
college footballs peek around the corner late Sunday night. We'll see you then.
All right, Greg. We'll see you later. Thanks
See you,
so
Greg.
much, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. I think 2 hours is a long time, guys. I didn't even realize it was so long until Greg said something. So let's go ahead and sort of wrap this up. Immaculate, what's your takeaway from today?
I would just like to point out how much Colorado has done to become more of a national brand than a regional brand, not just in getting Prime, but internal rules that they've changed, policies that they've changed. They've changed their entire transfer policy for credits so that they could bring in players from around the country on transfer that they couldn't before. They've gone with the coach who has a much more southeastern draw for recruiting. Anything that is going to make them more regionalized in the West, in my opinion, is antithesis to their entire investment, not just in money, but in choices, opportunity costs. That if they stick with this to where it seems to be going, maybe there's something good enough. If Fox is in it and a big part of that is Colorado's largely going to take up those slots, that might be just enough to keep them in. I don't know. But they have gone to considerable lengths to get back to where they were and to become a national brand, if you would say. People might. It's kind of funny that that's the case because they went 1-11 last year,
Right.
but they've gone a long ways to do that. So I find this to be a very interesting situation for them because at some point in time, they have to continue with that investment, whether that means moving on or not. We'll see.
Very good. But before I start losing people, by the way, please subscribe, follow all these guys if you can find them on Twitter. Definitely stay part of the conversation. We'll have a show tomorrow afternoon, which is the Holy Rival Show, me and Ute, and we'll be talking more about this, but we also have some other stuff on our minds. So definitely hit subscribe and then turn on your notifications so you know when our next show is. Moen, what do you want to say about today?
Just wanted to bring up with YouTube TV, the one channel I don't get, Pac Network.
Pac-12 Network. I know, I've heard that.
Pac-12 Network. Get ACC, SEC,
Unreal.
Big Ten, ESPN 1, 2, ESPNU, Fox Sports 1, 2. No Pac Network. So they're gonna have to figure that out.
Agreed. Gra, what about you?
Honestly, I mean, there's still some value in the pack. You have a team like Oregon that is it has national appeal. It does. You have a very good team in Washington that sometimes people forget about, and you have an absolutely, I don't even know what to call it. It's a sideshow. I don't know. I love it. But we have Prime in Colorado. So
Right.
there's definitely some interesting storylines. There's definitely some value to the pack. And I'm still all about the idea of regionality and having more conferences and not these super conferences. But at the same time, the pack is doing a really good job having people not feel sorry for it. To me, so much of this is self-inflicted. And as much as I don't want to see mega conferences, a part of me really doesn't care if the pack goes away. And like I said, I feel bad saying that because I like the idea of having 5 power conferences as opposed to potentially 4, and then maybe getting whittled down to 3 as
Right.
more merging. But honestly, the pack is sort of responsible for what's happening to the pack.
Yeah, I take responsibility, right? That's what we tell our kids. And I think that's tough. I'm not sure. Maybe Larry ran into time issues. He had to drop off, but I know that's what he's thinking of. Is just like he just wants to take care of what's in front of him, and the Pac-12, whether you want to give it value or not, has struggled with that. So I agree with you. Let's see, Immaculate. Did you already say your final thing? Has everybody else talked?
I was talking about Colorado in terms of the bigger picture that Agra was talking about. I would definitely say I still fully 100% expect everything that I've personally called for because the same reasons for it to happen still exist.
Right.
We're just, when you're in the middle of all this maelstrom, it feels like nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. I still feel that something big happens with the ACC first, and that's actually causing a little bit of delay to the West, because if you're Big Ten and there is something that possibly could be worked out with the ACC, you're going to want to do that first.
Right.
You're going to want to figure that out first. And personally, I think the SEC is playing a game where they're trying to get as much money out of ESPN as they can for that. So I think that for anyone who's watching the PAC situation and wondering what the hell is going on, there's a bit of a log jam, and we'll see how that goes. But I definitely think we still got a lot coming at us.
I 100% agree. 2 comments from Nick Jones. He says, does today change Colorado odds to leave? I wish we would have gotten to that before Greg left. That's my fault. I take responsibility for letting the time run away from me. But what do you guys think about Colorado? I'll give mine last.
On the surface, it looks like it. It definitely looks like it, but there could be some details that we don't know about that could make that be not the case, and they might be lower odds. I definitely think eventually they will, but there might be like a 3-year period or so that they stick around with the pack. But
Okay.
I do eventually think that they will. It's just a matter of when.
All right, Moen.
I think what happened yesterday has more of a bearing on that than what happened today.
Yeah, I think that's fair. If everything that's been reported is true, and or Colorado was told one thing and received something else, that definitely could have a bearing on it. There's no doubt about it. Grob, what about you?
I think they're going. I mean, I'm not going to say that they're going to make immediate announcements and you're going to see it happen soon, but I think in a somewhat close time frame, I think they're probably going to look to the Big 12. They're a much better fit at the Big 12 than say the Pac-12. And I think once that happens, that's probably going to be the death blow, because when they go, there's a really good chance that you have the four corner schools right there, where Arizona is probably going to go with them. And then you're going to see Arizona State and good possibility of Utah, and especially with BYU coming over. I think that's it. I think the good chance Colorado is going to go, and when it does, that's going to be the end of the pack, at least as a power conference at the very least.
Right. I think they are going to go, and they might only be the only school. I'm not sure they're going to pick up UConn. I think that's really cooled off quite a bit. But next week, watch everybody. Listen to Greg's show on Tuesday. That's when his Act 13 begins. So I encourage everybody who's watching right now, watch Greg's show on Sunday. And then as we go into next week, it's going to be a heavy news week. So definitely subscribe to my show. I'll be probably doing probably 3 or 4 shows next week. Encourage everybody to hang around with those. And tomorrow we're doing a show in the afternoon. Turn on your notifications, and if you're subscribed, you'll hear about that. It's going to be with the Wild Ute, who's a fantastic partner of mine. I want to thank you guys for being here. Groff, thanks for coming in at the last minute. And Moen and Immaculate, thanks so much for being here, guys. The panel that I have, I know Voice of College Football does one too. Mark Rogers, he does a great job. I'm not necessarily trying to copy him. I'm doing things a little different, but I think your voices are very important, and I really appreciate all 3 of you being here. Obviously, thanks to Greg and Larry for being on earlier. And I just want to tell everybody, thank you so much for being here. And the new subscribers, thank you, all the super chats. And I look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow.
Thanks for having me. Look forward to many more.
Okay. All right. We'll see you guys later. Everybody have a great night, and stay out of trouble. See you later.